minute after 11, and we're just about to go into the Steve Kilbey interview. I spoke with him last week, as I mentioned earlier, and he was in a fairly good mood. I was actually feeling a little bit under the weather at the time, so you'll excuse my my reticence during the interview, but we had quite a good chat, and there's quite a bit of music in here, so I hope you enjoy it.
Electric lights don't help my youth. All I own is almost faced a baby mirror and a myth. Is this where you live?
Is This Where You Live? That's from the Church's very first album of Skins and Heart, and our very special guest tonight is Stephen Kilbey. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks.
That's a very long song, apart from being quite involved, and a beautiful piece of music. 7:38, in fact. I don't want to get involved in numbers. Let's actually talk about what you thought about when you were recording that song, because it is a very long piece of music.
I originally wrote the lyrics for that when I was in England, and I was a lot of people sort of have construed that song to be about going home with a girl and sort of saying, is this where you live? I guess it sort of became that in the end, but at the time I was sort of asking myself, because I was one of these people that was brought out here at an early age to Australia, and always felt that I was really an Englishman, and got back to England and was sort of thinking, you know, this doesn't suit me, and Australia doesn't suit me, and I was sort of asking myself, is this where I live? And I wrote the song, and we sort of resurrected it about 3 years later when the Church made this first record. And like we were saying before, when we were doing this record, it was really confusing, because we were playing to like 10 people at the Metro and the Governor's Pleasure of a night time, and then after hours we'd rush into the studio and sort of we were doing this recording, and like we had this drummer called Nick Ward, who was diametrically opposed on every possible level to the other guys in the group, and we were having all kinds of arguments, and people were breaking down in tears, and it was a really strange record to record. And like I'm constantly amazed that it all sort of it came out, let alone just sort of went gold and did well.
Well, when did you come up with the name for the album?
Skins and Heart.
Yeah.
It was a line from For a Moment We're Strangers. It was just a sort of I think it's a fairly common ploy that you look for a line out of a song that would also make a good title, and it sort of gives, it gives people a sort of oh, look at this, I know where they got the title from.
So did any of the other tracks on this album come from before the days when the Church was formed?
Yeah, Bel Air. Bel Air was a song I wrote many years. One of the first songs I almost ever wrote in my life, which we used to do in an old Canberra group that Peter and I had going.
Was this, I've been told about a couple of bands that you were with in Canberra.
Yeah. One
was Baby Grand, is that
That's right, yeah.
What sort of band was that?
We were fairly dreadful. First of all, I mean, I used to play in cabaret groups and stuff like that. Like I was at school when I was 16. I was sort of earning $200 a week playing bass in cabaret bands of a night, and I mean, that was a lot of money in those days. And eventually I got kicked out of that because I sort of wanted the band to do sort of Pink Floyd numbers and Genesis songs, and they were sort of doing Little Old Wine Drinker Me. And we formed this glam rock group because we were all into T-Rex and David Bowie. We formed this glam rock group called Precious Little, and Peter Coppice was in that. He was actually playing drums, and there were a couple of other characters. And Peter eventually moved to guitar, and we got in a few other sort of characters and formed this group called Baby Grand. And we were sort of fairly shocking. We were doing all my songs, but they were sort of it was sort of like New York Dolls-y kind of rough and raw sort of stuff. But Bel Air was a song that I'd written towards the end period, and when we got the Church together, Peter said, let's resurrect Bel Air, and I think the church did it more justice than Baby Grand ever did. It was too sensitive for Baby Grand. That was a real thrash band. And everyone hated us too.
What about Tactics? Did you ever play in Tactics?
I knew Dave Studdard. I met him at a record shop, and he was trying to get a band together, and I played bass at some rehearsals, and I played bass at 2 very small gigs with no one there at the ANU and somewhere else, and that was like the extent of my involvement.
Well, you didn't feel any particular affinity to the music?
No, I think he and I were fairly diametrically opposed as to what we wanted to do.
Right, so you went your separate ways, or Dave carried on with Tactics, and you went off to form Church then?
No, I was never in Tactics. I was helping them out to play bass because they couldn't find anyone who could play bass.
Was that at the time when you formed the Church, after?
No, that was a long time after. That was about 78, I think, when he got Tactics together. No, that was about 2 years later we formed the Church, and I went off to England, and that was the last I ever heard of Tactics. Except when the Church achieved a little bit of notoriety, I noticed that Studdard and a few others were saying, "Oh, we kicked the bass player of the Church out of our band," but it was never quite like that. I mean, I was into what they were trying to do, because I mean, in Canberra in those days it was all sort of, horrible music, and like Dave was trying to. Dave had some good songs, and I was just playing bass and sort of helping them out.
Right, okay, now the next track I want to play is one called Tear It All Away, which comes from the double single, the Too Fast For You double single. Now, this again is a really nice piece of music, but it was a strange format at the time, a double.
Yeah. Chris Kilbey, who was our sort of Svengali for a short time in the beginning of our career, had this brainstorm that we'd get, after Unguarded Moment, we'd get 2 singles in the charts at once, and that was Too Fast For You and Tear It All Away, which were on this double single package, which would, after 5,000 copies, would stop being a double single package. And then the kids in inverted commas would go out and buy both of them, and we'd get sort of 2 singles in the charts at once. Unfortunately, the first 5,000 copies went in 2 days, and everyone was going in the shop saying, and because that was only the price of a normal single, so everyone was going in saying, well, I want to get these 2 singles by the Church, and I'm saying, well, you can't get them anymore, you have to buy them separately and pay full price, there's no cover bag. And people saying, oh, be buggered, I'm not going to do that. And that was the end of it, and I think the sort of people were so disgruntled with not getting the original copy, they didn't, the singles on their own never really sold. But now collector's items, they go at auctions sort of between $50 to $100.
You haven't got a stash anywhere?
I had a stash, and I used to give them away. I've only got 2 left now, and they're really scratched, so I'm going to hang on to them.
Well, I'm hanging on to mine too. Okay, Tear It All Away. Marketing, it's so fickle, isn't it? Life speeds up. That's on the flip side of Almost With You. And Stephen, perhaps you can explain a little bit about that song. I know the lyrics should really speak for themselves, but normally the music up until that point had, some people had thought it was fairly depressing, and this seemed to be quite an optimistic song to me.
I don't really know about this song. I really can't remember much about it. I know it was going to be on the Blurred Crusade, and I thought it was sort of it had become too stiff and mechanical when we after we finished doing it. I only want it to be a B-side. We still sort of play it live a fair bit because there's the good bit in the middle which gives Plug a chance to show off his licks on the drums. I don't know what this one's about anymore, really. I really can't remember it. why I wrote it or anything.
Well, what do the words "life speeds up" mean to you now? I mean, do you is it any sort of reflection on how you see life going? I mean, do you find life progressively more exciting?
I think it was more the fairly banal reflection that the older you get, the faster the years seem to go, rather than any sort of comment on technology or anything like that. I just felt that, as I was getting older and older, that my life was sort of rapidly being compressed, rather than seems when you're 8 years old that a year just goes on forever, and a day is, time. In fact, I think that's been a fairly common theme throughout a lot of my songs, is the slippery nature of time, and the tricks it plays on you.
Because it was about this time and the period directly after that things for the church seemed to take a bit of a downturn, didn't they?
It was after the Blurred Crusade things took a downturn. We went to England, played all these concerts in Europe, and everyone loved us, and Blurred Crusade got good reviews, and we came back to Australia, and things started to go nasty from then on.
Life slowed down then, did it?
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you manage to turn the corner, and was it a long process trying to work out what had gone wrong or why things hadn't happened as you wanted them to?
There were so many reasons. We got ourselves into debt in England. We'd travel around and stayed in reasonably good hotels and had a road crew, and people had been flying around visiting their girlfriends, and we got into a lot of debt to our publishing company over there, and when we came back we had to work hard for a long time just to pay that money off. I mean, I imagine that's a fairly common story for a lot of bands. We unfortunately didn't sort of go and stay on people's front room floors and things, probably the things we should have done, and sort of gone over on the cheap. We sort of did it fairly grand touring style, and we sort of took us a long time to pay it all off.
So you weren't viewing it as being a very optimistic move, you were sort of playing all your cards in one go, weren't you?
I wasn't, to tell the truth, I wasn't looking at it as anything at all other than, oh great, we're going to go and play in England, wow, And then, it was only a while afterwards that the financial implications dawned, and it's only until the last year that the church has really become aware of paying tax and all those things, and not that we haven't been paying tax, but just all the things that sort of involves having a small company and employing lots of people, and making financial decisions, because we're all fairly sort of non-logical, non-linear type thinkers, and we were just, oh great, pack up your guitar and pack up your paisley shirts and get over to England, and we're going to play in London, and that was all it was. I mean, no one thought any more beyond that.
So when you came back and found yourselves having to pay this debt, did that take a bit of the edge off the actual live work that you're doing, knowing that you were doing it more for the money than for the fun of it, say?
I mean, it never has. When we play in Sydney, when we play in Melbourne, it's great. We were doing country tours, and we were going up to Cairns and working our way down and over in New Zealand and all kinds of weird places, and who needs it? They didn't really like us much, and I guess we just got in. It was just working solidly to pay this money off, and making seance at the same time.
Well, look, that's something I'd like to just talk about briefly, the appeal to you of mini albums and EPs particularly, because you put out sing-songs, Seance, and Remote Luxury sort of in a row.
No, Seance was an album. You mean Persia?
Ah, right.
Remote Luxury and then Persia.
So what do you think about EPs? Were this a more viable financial proposition, you thought, or a good artistic way of presenting your music?
To tell the truth, neither. Sing-songs was actually 4 demos that we had on a track, I Am a Rock left over from the Blurred Crusade, which we recorded in an attempt to salvage our Capitol Records contract. They said, we're not going to release the Blurred Crusade because it's a load of rubbish. send us over 4 new songs that you've done, just demo them at EMI. So we went and demoed them in one night. And then when they said, oh no, these aren't any good either, which, you know, they weren't, we decided to stick them out on an EP. And then after we did Seance, I don't know why we did Remote Luxury, but we did it as 5 tracks, and then Warner Brothers in America liked Remote Luxury and they wanted another 5 tracks. So then we did Persia, which made an album there, but came out as another EP here, and it just seemed that we kept releasing all these EPs, but I don't think we'll be doing it very often in the future. It didn't seem to be a good move for us. You know, there was sort of commercial radio weren't playing any tracks off them, and people weren't, you know, sure what they were, and they sort of didn't.
I guess it's always hard with EPs rather than singles, particularly to get radio airplay, because the charts aren't oriented towards that sort of format, if you like. But it's a shame when you think of, say, The Night is Very Soft from Sing Songs, which...
That's one of my favourite tracks we ever did. I thought it was the first time we ever had a vaguely sexual feel to the song. I thought it had this sort of a hot, sultry kind of Sydney night sort of... it's the first time it sort of ever had that sort of sexual throb. And all our stuff before that had sort of been, I don't know, hadn't quite been that way. And I'd written these couple of songs all in the same vein, and I thought maybe this is what the Americans want, something a bit more. I thought it was funky at the time.
Okay, let's have a listen to it and we'll come back and talk some more.